As I wrote on my Facebook page last night, right before I went to sleep, I wrote, to those of you who knew that President Trump was not going to vaporize 90 million people tonight, congratulations. You have passed the easiest IQ test of all time. It is 6:04. Good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. And if you actually bought into that, I don't know. Some people might say...
a mentally retarded person.
I don't know. Just possible. But anyway, as we sit here on a Wednesday morning and we look back on the last 24 hours, do I love how the president approached the final hours of this negotiation to try to get to a temporary ceasefire with Iran? No, not really. Do I like the idea of having to even bring up the idea of, 90 million people vanquishing? No, I don't like that idea one bit. No, I don't think that really that post helped anything yesterday. Did I think it was necessary? No. Did I ever think it was serious? Absolutely not. Never. And we talked about it when it came out at 7 o'clock yesterday. But at the same time, you had people screaming, oh my gosh, at 7:01 Central Time tonight, meaning last night, Trump's going to drop a nuke on Iran and we're officially going to be in full-blown World War III. And it was like, well, based on what? Why? Why are you assuming that that's what's on the verge of happening here? Because if you followed Trump for 10 years... 11 years now, one thing that is certain and guaranteed is that Trump likes to have a lot of bluster. He likes to say a lot of things that he typically doesn't mean. That's who he is. And it may not be your style. It may not be my style. But you know what? Doesn't really matter what my style might be and what your style might be. We can critique the moves. We can critique the approach. We can critique whether or not the war's the right thing to do. All those things fair to put on the table. And we've talked about them for the better part of 5 weeks now. But when it comes to yesterday and the hysteria that was taking place, that Trump was really on the verge of wiping all of Iran off the map, when you have the people there in Iran who are the ones in large part that theoretically benefit the most from some type of potential new leadership. Some may want to call it regime change, whatever you want to refer to it as. They're the ones who stand to benefit the most if this thing can come to a very good conclusion. So why he would sit there and make that supposedly legitimate threat about wiping Iran off the map, I'm like, well, based on what? Two things can be true here. Unnecessary post, but also you take it seriously, but not literally. That's the MO and the game on how you cover Trump going back 11 years. You take him seriously, but not literally. And yesterday was case in point on that. So there is a ceasefire that is now in place here between the United States and Iran. And for what it's worth, it seems like Israel's not in love with it. I'm sorry about that, Israel, but you know what? For at least the time being, let's see how this plays out and what exactly this means in the days to come. So it came down late yesterday. U.S. and Iran agree to a 2-week ceasefire that includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz. What happened? Oil futures immediately fell off the cliff. I mean, last night they were sitting, where were they at yesterday? Stocks went up. Oil prices slid about 15% on the news late last night. So that's where things are at right now. When you look at oil prices on Monday, they were at $112 a barrel. They're down right now to, $73 a barrel. If I'm seeing that right here this morning, that's unbelievable. The most recent numbers here that we saw on the stock market as well, those futures were up when I went to bed last night, about 900 points. Right now, the Dow futures are up 1,200 points. That's 2.5%. S&P's up 2.5%. NASDAQ is up 3.5%. So you're seeing a big bounce back. Does that mean that the market's going to be, back to the moon? I don't know. But obviously, the markets like the news that at least for now, there's a ceasefire. As the president has pulled back on his threat, and the U.S. and Iran have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire that includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which obviously can get all the oil through that area and get it in large part to the rest of the world. Iran's Supreme National Security Council said it has accepted the ceasefire and that it would negotiate with the United States in Pakistan starting on Friday. Neither Iran nor the United States said when the ceasefire would begin, and attacks did take place in Israel early this morning. On top of that, there are reports this morning from Matt Finn of Fox News. The UAE says it's actively taking incoming drone and missile attacks from Iran today. Kuwait also saying they've been taking incoming attacks from Iran today. So just something to note as we get the day started. Everything's not solved. Everything's not perfect. There's still a ways to go. But take it all in stride. Take a step back. This is like watching a sports team when you know what the playbook is. Okay? And I'm not saying that to be rude towards Trump. It's actually the opposite. He's been negotiating the same way, whether it's real estate or politics, for 40 plus years. It's like yesterday I started off the show and I said that Trump's a bully. And some of you on the text line got mad. And I was like, no, Trump takes pride in being a bully. Like, Trump is proud of how he is a bully when he is negotiating deals. It's part of his MO. It's not something to be offended by. I mean, he's not offended by it. There's no reason for you to be offended by it for him on his behalf. This is what he does, and it's what we saw play out over the last couple of days. So, now we sit here and obviously we follow what's going on in the Middle East. 1 hour from now, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, is going to do a live press conference from the Pentagon. So we will carry that just after 7 o'clock here on KCMO Talk Radio. And, of course, we'll be getting your reaction all morning at 913-408-7957. But it is, in many ways, exactly how we thought it was going to play out. I'm not going to sit here and scream victory because we don't know what the next few days are going to bring. I don't believe you can trust the Iranians as far as you can throw them. I don't. They're already bombing, allies and whatnot as of this morning. So clearly they're not wiped out yet. They're severely damaged, but they're not wiped out yet. They still have leadership that very much is trying to stay as radical as it's ever been. And I'm not convinced the job is done yet. I'm not. But for today, based on the overreaction that was taking place on some of this stuff 24 hours ago, at the very least, you have to admit things are trending in the right direction. And that is a good thing for everybody. It's good for the United States. It's good for our allies. It's good for Israel. And it's good for Iran. Will there be bumps in the road? I expect there will be bumps in the road. Stuff's never done on a straight line. Okay, there will be setbacks. And those are going to be fair to critique, just like everything else in any kind of a foreign conflict and wars. No doubt about it. All that stuff can be on the table. And you can be critical today if you want. I'm fine with that. But if you're going to be critical, you can't have it both ways. You can't act like yesterday Trump was about to end the world and then say, well, Trump's a chicken and he chickened out in Taco. Trump always chickens out. You can't have it both ways. But you're seeing a lot of that, and it's so predictable. 913-408-7957. That is the text line. That is the studio line. Here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as always. And yes, the earnings tax did pass with flying colors in Kansas City. What does that mean? And what is the ask from Quinton Lucas after the vote went down yesterday? That and more coming up on a busy Wednesday right here on KCMO.
Vince Colonnese here, and I'm coming up at 11 after Kevin Keatsman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Some of you had some fun. I got like a bunch of listeners sending me this yesterday. A story from the Babylon Bee. Headline, Trump tells Iran this is the last warning before he sends Bruce Springsteen to perform there. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man, that's too much.
Well, we can't send Rosie anymore.
You got to have your mic on there, Mark. That's always helpful to go on the air.
We don't have Rosie to send over there anymore.
Yeah,
so.
no, we don't. Yeah. No, that's right. So it's Bruce now. Bruce has turned himself into a meme. That's what he's done. He's done it to himself, okay? The guy, I love the guy. One of the most legendary rock and roll stars of all time. And he's turned himself into a Trump meme because he just can't help himself. It's sad to see. All right, so last night, the earnings tax passed. 75% of Kansas City said, keep taxing me and keep taxing the out-of-towners who work here at 1%. So to be clear, if you are a Kansas City, Missouri resident, you are paying the earnings tax. It doesn't matter if you live in Kansas City and work in Blue Springs or Independence or Lee Summit or Kansas. If you are a resident of Kansas City, you pay the earnings tax. And then if you work in Kansas City but do not live in Kansas City, you also pay the earnings tax. So for Kansas City, they get to double dip. All residents, no matter where you work, pays the earnings tax. And then those who work in the city but do not live there will also pay the 1% earnings tax. So this passed as we expected, overwhelmingly yesterday. And the mayor of Kansas City has a message for the Missouri legislature on what he wants to see happen now that the earnings tax has passed once again yesterday. And it'll be back on the ballot in 2031. Here was Quentin Lucas.
I have just one little request. Because once again, it looks like we will win with a very strong number. It was 77% last time. As of right now, with 30,000 votes in, we're sitting at 75%. To my friends in the Missouri legislature, I love you. God bless you. Do not make us have to do this again in 5 years.
No, absolutely make the city do it again in 5 years. Why would you not? I mean, you're winning it overwhelmingly. Why would you not want to do this again in 5 years? What's the big deal? City council gets to pat themselves in the back, make themselves look good. I mean, yes, there's a cost to put on an election. I understand there's a cost associated with that. But, there's not a ton of money being spent on getting out the yes vote. You guys are crushing it with 75%. It's a way to keep you honest. That's what it is. If you're going to have a 1% earnings tax, you know what? The voters should be allowed to keep you honest and keep you on your toes. While, yes, it's expected to pass every time. It's been on, Kansas City payroll, part of the budget since 1963. It's not likely going anywhere. I would be very intrigued as to whether or not there was ever any no-side actual promotion, actual, grassroots effort on the no side of the earnings tax. I'd be intrigued to see how that would play out. But no one's done it, at least not yet. Now there's 5 years of planning for 2031. Maybe our buddy Patrick Toohey can lead the way on that. He'll be on the show at 8:30 this morning. Maybe Toohey and the Show Me guys and gals can put together some type of campaign for 2031 on the no side of the earnings tax. I'm just thinking ahead here. But either way, the Missouri legislature, by the way, they will not give in. Trust me, they're not going to get to work today and be like, hey, Mayor Lucas asked us to do this thing. You think we can do that today? Yeah, they're not going to do that. In fact, they may have heard the mayor last night and been like, you know what, let's do it every 3 years. Screw it. Let's go ahead. We're going to do it every other year. Something like that. That's what they may end up doing. They're more likely to do that than acquiesce the mayor right now with his request to make the earnings tax something that has to be renewed maybe every 10 years or something along those lines. That being the case, what I'm also glad to see and hear is from people who are like, you know what, I voted for this thing because even though I know it's bad policy, it's in my best interests. And that's why it's always guaranteed to pass, all but certain to pass. Because there are a lot of people in this town who know it's bad economic policy, but they are happy to take 1% from those folks living outside of the city limits in Clay and Jackson and Cass County and across the state line. They'll gladly take your 1%, and they'll do with it what they want. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Waldo. That's where Libby is this morning. Libby, good morning. What's going on?
Oh, God, Pete. Okay, I'm going to describe what happened yesterday. When we went to my voting area, which is 79th and Holmes, and I've been doing that for 20 years, the moment we got out of the car, and I mean, it was within 3 seconds, closed the car door, started to walk up to our voting area, and two people immediately were right there. And each of them had this brochure about voting yes on this bill or this tax. Well, my partner's a nice guy, so he accepted it because he doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I, as a blind person, didn't realize what had happened, and I wish I had said, no, I don't want your brochure. Well, I didn't know what happened. But anyway, I walked in and before I walked into the door, I said, I'm not voting yes on this at all. And so I went in and I did my vote, came back out, and I said, wait a minute, I thought I heard Pete say something, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Pete. One, you're right, there are no committee people out there giving brochures. Two, did you not say that that there's a statistics that about $4,200 is spent on every resident in this city?
Yes, yes. That was from one of the TV stations in town. Had that on their report the other night. Yeah, it's about $4,400 per resident.
Okay. How is that once a year, or is that over the 5-year period?
No, that's annually. That's based on the budget of whatever it is.
Then I have a question. Then here's an approach that I think I want to take. Great, you say you spent $4,400 on me. I'd like to have a written account on where did that money go on me as a resident in the city.
Well, it's a trick question, Libby. You know that. I mean, it's going to a lot of things: police, fire, pensions, public works, potholes. It's going everything.
But I have a yes, but. Yes, you're right. But when was it applied to me as a citizen? Any of that money? It certainly didn't go to my property tax bill. It certainly didn't. I didn't call the fire department. Mm-hmm. I didn't use the police service. Where did that money go on me as a citizen in this area?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask the question, Libby, but you know as well as I do that they'll say, "Hey, we're a community, we're a city. It costs a lot to run this place, and if you want to live in a halfway decent city, this is what it's going to cost you."
If that's the case, then I want them to put Braille back up on all these signals. I want Braille correctly written in all the public bathrooms by law. I mean, I want to see things that actually impact me as a citizen. And
hey, know what? I'm all in, considering that they will set up bathrooms for 7 different people in the city who might need their own facility. If you want Braille back around Kansas City, Libby, I'll push for Braille.
Okay. Now here's something else I'm going to ask. I would like to be on a committee and say, let's start putting no people out there in the community at these times that we're doing. I want to join a committee like that.
Listen,
I really do.
As long as they're 25 feet, thank you, Libby. As long as they're 25 feet away from the building's entrance, according to Missouri statute, they are allowed to electioneer. So I know that you're blind, so you're probably the wrong person to ask. But as long as they were outside of 25 feet away from the voting location yesterday, it's technically okay.
That seems pretty close.
It is very close. I mean, 26 feet away from the entrance is nothing. Nothing. It's not even a first down on a football field.
I encountered that a lot of the times when I go. There's a variety of issues. And so as I walk up to the church we go into, there are people on the sidewalk. So they're plenty far enough away from the actual polling unit, but they're outside in the units.
They are.
Mass.
They are. Yeah. So, now I want to hear from you on this at 913-408-7957. I get what Libby's saying. I understand. You can't really run a government like that saying, hey, what's in it for me? What am I getting out of it? But her broader point on wasteful spending and overspending, $2.6 billion is the budget this year. A lot of that coming from the earnings tax. Absolutely fair to critique. 913-408-7957.
from Lenexa to Lee Summit. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Hey, just so you know, too, St. Louis passed an earnings tax yesterday. 85% of St. Louis voting yes on the earnings tax over on the other side of the state. So just something to note. We got a little more common sense in Kansas City. Wasn't quite by that margin, about 75% here. So do with that what you want. So there you go.
Is that in your tallest midget column?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that fits that analogy and description. It does. Meantime, very few things are done on a super bipartisan basis. This was yesterday in Missouri. It got national attention. CNN reporting here, Missouri governor signs bill banning judges from delaying divorces when a spouse is pregnant. It passed unanimously in the Missouri House and the Senate. And yesterday, Governor Kehoe signed this bill into law banning state judges from delaying divorce proceedings because a spouse is pregnant. No-brainer, long overdue. Unbelievable that a law like this was ever in place. But you know what? You fix something when it's bad, dumb law. And that's what this was. The bill was sponsored by Cecily Williams, a Republican. And she told KOMU-TV that the original measure aimed to simplify matters like child support and custody agreements, but also put spouses in dangerous situations if they were in abusive relationships. The bill states that pregnancy status shall not prevent the court from entering a judgment of dissolution of the marriage or legal separation. Williams, who has publicly shared how she tried to finalize her divorce from an abusive spouse while pregnant about 2 decades ago, said at the signing ceremony that changing the state measure was a priority for her since the day she decided to run for office. So good job by both sides of this aisle, Republicans and Democrats, coming together on this, getting this done, signed by Governor Kehoe yesterday, as Missouri was among a handful of states, including Texas, where divorce proceedings are frequently paused by judges during a spouse's pregnancy. What's the argument against this again?
I don't want a baby born in a courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing here? Now, there's no doubt. I've heard from a lot of guys privately, not many call into the show on this topic, but privately, who feel like the divorce proceedings have oftentimes railroaded men and have been anti-men for far too long. I don't have, and God willing, never will have any firsthand experience on any of this. That being the case, I'm sympathetic to that. However, if you have abuse allegations involved in a divorce proceeding and somebody, obviously the woman is pregnant in that relationship. Sorry, dudes can't get pregnant. I know some of you are still
talk about a bombshell
trying to grasp that concept. All right. But if that's the case, you got to give these women a way out. You just have to give them a quick, fast, easy way out. And you can't have judges holding up divorce proceedings because the woman's pregnant, John. You can't do it.
Well, I'm curious about how long it might be. For instance, this might factor into potential child support.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is that my kid?
Mm-hmm.
So I could see pausing it long enough to determine something like that. That seems common sense.
It does. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you
But
get the
unfortunately,
information.
court, I guess if you pause stuff, sometimes it gets shoved 60 days down the road for the next reschedule. So
Well,
that is problematic right there.
Exactly. Exactly right. And I mean, 60 days or 30 days even, when you're talking about a pregnant woman who's in an abusive relationship, that is a lifetime. And then you're putting that baby at risk as well. So thankfully, this was signed by Governor Kehoe yesterday, and we'll give him a round of applause for that. In the meantime, we've got Pete Hegseth, who is going to be giving an address and a speech from the Pentagon coming up in 25 minutes. We'll carry that live right here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, streaming as always on the KCMO Talk Radio app. The earnings tax passed yesterday in Kansas City, overwhelmingly, as we noted earlier as well. So a lot to get into this morning. Beto Lopez wins the Lee Summit mayor's race over Cinda Rader. 54 to 46 was the final tally there. And that, like so many others around the Kansas City Metro, that election was not about Republican Democrat. That election was about outsider versus insider and the apartment issue. Cinda Rader ran a campaign about Lee Summit not becoming Overland Park Light. And Overland Park Light won out. That's what happened yesterday in Lee Summit. We had Beto Lopez on the show. Seems like a fine guy, been on the council. Cinda Rader seems like a fine person, been on the council. But they had different views when it comes to the apartment issue, specifically in Lee Summit. And as has happened in many other races over the last few years around Kansas City, the pro-apartment crowd continues to win. They have better funding. They have better connections at City Hall. And it's just an uphill battle. The closest a local municipality came to fighting back on the apartments was Mike Zinnigy. When he ran for Overland Park mayor, that would have been in 2021. And, I mean, he came within a whisker of winning that race against Kurt Skoog. So it was very close. It came down to the very end. The developers were all in on Kurt Skoog's side of the aisle, and he ended up beating Mike Zinnigy. That's the closest I've seen in local Kansas City area politics to an anti-apartment politician nearly winning a race. You had folks on the city council in Shawnee who were very much against apartments. Tony Gillette and some other folks were doing a really good job fighting the overdevelopment of apartments over the last few years. And they all got wiped out in the last election in Shawnee last year. So they're all gone. So there's really nobody that I can think of prominently in the Kansas City area. I don't mean Kansas City as a city. I mean the region. I mean the metro. I can't think of an anti-apartment politician who's really standing up for the makeup of the community as it currently exists. I don't know where that person is. I mean, if you know who that person is, just drop me a text at 913-408-7957. Like a prominent area mayor, a prominent city council that is doing a good job fighting this stuff. But yesterday, that's really what was on the ballot in Lee Summit. I've seen some national people actually talk about Lee Summit and be like, wow, this is a Republican suburban stronghold, and it just went for the Democrat in Beto Lopez. Well, no, it's not really that simple. Those issues in Lee Summit were not really about Democrat versus Republican issues. It's just that's not how it was being even pitched in Lee Summit. It was about the apartment issue. That's what it was about. And the pro-apartment side ended up winning out. And it was always going to be an uphill battle, I believe, for Cinda Rader there in Lee Summit. Beto Lopez was the heavy favorite in that race, and he ended up getting the win. So there will be a new administration there in Lee Summit. And if you wanted the apartments to slow down, listen, Beto came on the show, seemed like a reasonable enough guy, and insisted, like others have said around the metro, hey, we're trying to be targeted. We got a vision for this stuff. We want to make sure that things are in the right places. The problem is, oftentimes, they're not doing what they say. They're jamming these things on every open lot they can find. That's the problem. They'll talk a good game, but when they actually have to implement it, they will rezone whatever, they will subsidize anything, and they will just say, yes, Mr. Developer, do you want another? That's what they'll do. And that's what that election was largely about. It was not your traditional R versus D race. And Lee Summit decided the status quo is the way to go. And that's what they'll get going forward. So have fun being Overland Park Light. But it might not be light for long. I'll just say that much. The 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour before the Pentagon briefing on Iran coming up just after 7 on KCMO.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO.
.649 Pentagon press briefing coming up in 15 minutes. You will hear it right here on KCMO. But first up, let's roll.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Election results from the Missouri side of the state line last night. The earnings tax gets renewed. 75% of Kansas Cityans agreeing with the 1% earnings tax that's been in place since 1963. In Lee's Summit, Beto Lopez will be the next mayor. In Independence, Kevin King will be the next mayor, beating out Bridget McCandless. Grain Valley, Bob Headley will be the next mayor of Grain Valley. We got some loyal listeners out there in Grain Valley. Give me the scoop. Give me the goods on Bob. How's Bob going to do out there in Grain Valley? And then you had a bunch of school board elections as well. I mean, Blue Springs, Hickman Mills, Center, Lee's Summit, North Kansas City. And then you had multiple bond questions also on the ballot. And every single bond question ended up passing. Hickman Mills, school tax levy, school bond, Independence, Center, Blue Springs, utilities bond question. They all passed overwhelmingly yesterday around Kansas City.
Number 2.
Let's go to Iran, where last night the president pulled back on his threats against Iran as the two sides agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. That includes the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. So what we also do know as of this morning, and what's being shared by some of the reporters like Matt Finn at Fox News, is that the UAE says it's actively taking incoming drone and missile attacks from Iran today. And Kuwait and the UAE say they've been taking incoming attacks from Iran today. So all that has been happening since this ceasefire was announced. So what is the Pentagon going to say about that? We'll find out in just over 10 minutes here on KCMO when Pete Hegseth does a press conference from the Pentagon. We'll carry it just after the top of the hour here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Number 3.
All right, next up in our 6 at 6, let's go to this story in the Bahamas, where a missing American woman's husband previously threatened to throw her overboard before her sudden disappearance in the Bahamas, according to her daughter. Carly Ainsworth believes something might have happened involving her mom, Lynette Hooker, and her husband, Brian, while they were out at sea on Saturday night. As she revealed, she received a voice note from him amid the search. So this is now getting national attention. Bahamian authorities say Lynette Hooker was swept away by the currents after falling from where she was with her husband while trying to reach their yacht. The yacht was named Soulmate. A criminal investigation has not yet been opened. Brian has not been charged with any crime and has not commented on any of the investigation or the allegations. Now, the daughter also claimed that Brian's persona would change after drinking alcohol. So this is now a missing person story starting to get more national attention in the Bahamas, and we'll see how it plays out here on KCMO.
Number 4.
All right, next up, shall we go to Platte County? Let's go there. A split Platte County Commission voted to let the sheriff's office retain an extra $315,000 in its equipment rental budget, funds that were added due to a clerical mistake. County Auditor Kevin Robinson acknowledged that his office accidentally increased the line item from $35,000 to $350,000.
Whoops.
During the final stages of the budget process. And the commission decided that, well, what's another zero on there?
It's nuts.
What is going on in Platte County?
Because there's a line in Caddyshack where Chevy Chase is bringing his girl in, and she said, hey, here's a check for, I don't know, X amount of dollars. $100,000. He's like, I'll keep it.
Yeah.
Right? Wait a minute.
Except, wait, no, this is our money.
Yeah.
That's the difference. This is our,
Hello, taxpayers.
Yes, this is your money in Platte County.
Equipment rental for the sheriff's department. What would you rent?
Yeah.
That's a lot of balloon animals there at the at the school or something.
I would agree.
Boy.
I would agree.
So the sheriff saying, I'm not giving it back. That was the first thing that I'm like, how's that work?
I'm with you, man.
I couldn't be so lucky.
This thing stinks. There's nothing about this that I like at all. Oh, extra zero in the budget. Just keep it. All right, keep the change, you filthy animal.
Hey, I've got an idea, Pete.
Yeah. Wow. Can they do that to our paychecks around here?
Mm-hmm.
You guys want an extra zero on the paycheck?
And in office space, there's a glitch. We fix the glitch.
Yeah. That's right.
We need somebody to have fat fingers that's typing that stuff out.
Yeah. Let's get the HR people drunk, and then we'll get them to throw another zero on the paycheck. What a joke that is. Wow.
Number 5.
All right, the Royals lose yesterday, but I don't care about that. I mean, I do. But how about KU baseball? What's going on in Lawrence with the baseball team? Who needs KU basketball when you got KU baseball? KU beats number 19 Nebraska yesterday 5-3, and Kansas baseball has won 13 of 15, and they're right near the top of the Big 12 baseball standings. They're hosting number 12 UCF this weekend, and I don't know if the rain's also going to be in Lawrence, but suddenly KU baseball is getting a lot of attention.
Nebraska was 15-0 at home before KU beat them yesterday.
How about that? That's outstanding. They are just on some kind of roll right now in Lawrence on the baseball side.
And it kind of started last year. They had a pretty good season last year.
They did have a good season last year, and this year
home runs.
They're getting a lot of attention. And, this is obviously not what you would consider college baseball territory. I mean, that's more the ACC and the SEC. It's just hard to get great baseball teams here because the pitching. No great pitchers want to pitch in Lawrence, Kansas in March. They want to go to Florida. They want to go to Alabama. They want to be in Georgia. They don't want to be here. But Kansas, the pitching's been pretty good. But if you can stack up the lineup and just try to outscore teams, that's how you win. And KU is doing that right now. And last up in the 6 at 6.
Number 6.
All right, I saw this story and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm just throwing it in there because I thought it was funny. And it reminded me of something. Minneapolis city leaders are considering bathhouses that allow sexual activity. That's something that is being considered in Minneapolis and is getting national attention. I kid you not. And what did I think of? I thought back to Joe Biden 7 years ago when he did town hall on CNN, and Joe Biden infamously had this to say about bathhouses.
Remember, Anderson, back 15, 20 years ago, we talked about this in San Francisco. It was all about, gay bathhouses. And it's all about round-the-clock sex. It's all, come on, man.
Yeah, I just had to bring back that old-timer. That's all. There's your 6 at 6.
Leering Center of Bathhouse. I don't know. Just a new name for him.
Oh, my goodness. You can't make it up sometimes. You really can't. Wow. That's 2019 Joe Biden. There you go. We'll go to the Pentagon. Coming up next, Pete Hegseth's press conference is coming up. We should be hearing from Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, in a press conference in the Pentagon that should be starting any moment. When that does begin, we'll carry it uninterrupted here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We do have some updates for you as well this hour. The president having a couple of posts on his Truth Social here this morning. The most recent one, let's see what that was. Here we go. Hold on. I got to make sure I'm fully refreshed on the president's Truth Social page. 34 minutes ago, a country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed on any and all goods sold to the United States, 50% effective immediately. There will be no exclusions or exemptions, President DJT. And 7 minutes prior to that, the president writing here, the United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what will be a very productive regime change. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will, working with Iran, dig up or remove all of the deeply buried nuclear dust. It is now and has been under very exacting satellite surveillance. Nothing has been touched from the date of the attack. We are and will be talking tariff and sanction relief with Iran. All right, let's go out to the Pentagon. Here is Pete Hegseth live at 7:05 on a Wednesday morning.
Took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You see, in less than 40 days, one of our combatant commands, Central Command, CENTCOM, using less than 10% of America's total combat power, dismantled one of the world's largest militaries. The world's leading state sponsor of terrorism proved utterly incapable of defending itself, its people, or its territory. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat. Together with our Israeli partners, America's military achieved every single objective, on plan, on schedule, exactly as laid out from day one. Iran's Navy is at the bottom of the sea, whether it's the Soleimani class, their frigate class, their prized drone aircraft carriers, submarines, mine layers, sunk. Iran's Air Force has been wiped out. Iran no longer has an air defense, any sort of a comprehensive air defense system. We own their skies. Their missile program is functionally destroyed. Launchers, production facilities, and existing stockpiles depleted and decimated. And almost completely ineffective. Iran shot hundreds and hundreds of missiles and one-way attack drones at our aircraft carrier. They were obsessed with it, and they never got even close. Every single one of those shots easily shot down miles and miles away from the Abe Lincoln. They were blowing ammo into fantasy land. Contrast that with, most significantly, in last night's wave of more than 800 strikes, we finished completely destroying Iran's defense industrial base, a core pillar of our mission objective. What little they have left buried in bunkers is all they will have. They can still shoot, we know that. Their command and control is so decimated they can't really talk and coordinate, so they still may shoot here and there, but that would be very, very unwise. But they can no longer build missiles, build rockets, build launchers, or build UAVs. Their factories have been razed to the ground, set back in historic fashion. You see, had Iran refused our terms, the next targets would have been their power plants, their bridges, and oil and energy infrastructure, targets they could not defend and could not realistically rebuild. It would have taken them decades, and we were locked and loaded. They couldn't defend against it. President Trump had the power to cripple Iran's entire economy in minutes, but he chose mercy. He spared those targets because Iran accepted the ceasefire under overwhelming pressure. The new Iranian regime understood that a deal was far better than the fate that awaited them. This new regime just happened to look at what happened to their predecessors. Their top leadership was systematically eliminated. The previous Iranian supreme leader, dead. The Supreme National Security Council secretary, dead. The Supreme Leader Office Advisor, dead. The Supreme Leader Military Office Chief, dead. The Defense Minister, no longer with us. The IRGC Commander, dead. The Armed Forces General Staff Commander, dead. The Intelligence Minister, dead.
Dead.
The IRGC Navy Commander, no longer here. The IRGC Intel Chief, dead.
Dead.
I skipped over a bunch, and I could go on and on and on, to include the new so-called new Supreme Leader wounded and disfigured. This new regime was out of options and out of time, so they cut a deal. They know this agreement means that they will never, ever possess a nuclear weapon. Under the terms, any nuclear material they should have will be removed. Any material, they should not have will be removed. Right now, their dust is deeply buried and watched 24/7 overhead. The president has been clear from the beginning, there will be no Iranian nuclear weapons. Period. Full stop. Other presidents said it. President Trump did it. Operation Epic Fury. Less than 6 weeks, clear mission, decisive action, overwhelming firepower, America first, a historic battlefield victory. For decades, Iran killed Americans with roadside bombs in Iraq, using cowardly proxies to do their dirty work while they hid safely in Tehran. They struck our embassies with car bombs and attacked from the shadows, never daring to face us toe-to-toe. They thought they could bleed America with impunity. Well, they just learned the hard way what happens when you try to fight us directly. And even when they got lucky, one time in 40 days, and downed 2 of our pilots, they couldn't hold them. In a daring 14-hour rescue operation, 7 hours in daylight and 7 hours of night, both pilots were recovered safely. Not once, but twice. A daylight thunder run right up the middle of their country. Boots on the ground. A midnight raid right up the middle of their country. Boots on the ground. 0 American casualties. The Iranians humiliated and demoralized. We control their fate, not the other way around. That's why they came to the table. Iran's defeat is America's retribution for every American lost to Iranian terror, especially those brave troops killed by Iranian-made roadside bombs in Iraq that my generation knows so well, and for the suffering their regime has inflicted around the world. Now we have a chance at real peace and a real deal. The War Department, for now, has done its part. We stand ready in the background to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term. And as everyone knows, nobody makes a better deal than President Trump. To the warriors of Epic Fury, I say well done. You're the backbone of our country. Your skill, your bravery, and sheer guts and grit showed the world what America is all about. I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. President is proud of you. Job well done. But stay vigilant and stay ready. To the families of our fallen, your sacrifice was in service of a historic cause, and we will always remember your heroes, our heroes, we will continue to honor them. And to our Israeli allies, thank you for being a brave, capable, and willing ally on this battlefield. The rest of the world and the rest of our so-called allies saw what real capabilities look like. They should take some notes. Our troops, our American warriors, deserve the credit for this day. But God deserves all the glory. Tens of thousands of sorties, refuelings, and strikes carried out under the protection of divine providence. A massive effort with miraculous protection. Dude 44 Bravo spoke for all of us. God is good. The chairman will now provide an even deeper military detail on the historic success of Operation Epic Fury. Mr. Chairman.
All right, there you go. That is Secretary of War Pete Hegseth live at the Pentagon, and he made it very clear. It sounds like we're done. Operation Epic Fury was, speaking in past tense, a historic and overwhelming victory. I didn't think that they would jump that far ahead. I thought it was going to be more along the lines of, hey, you know what? Things are trending in the right direction. We've got our ceasefire. We're cutting a deal. And we are optimistic on where things are going. But no, that was Pete Hegseth saying Operation Epic Fury is over. That's what I heard. Is that the right move? 913-408-7957. We'll get your live reaction coming up to this breaking news from the Pentagon on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Hey, did you see the weather forecast coming up this weekend, by the way? A lot of rain after some rain last week, and we need it, but with that rain can come some surprises to your foundation, and that's why I'm proud to be kicking off this new partnership with KC Pier, Kansas City's foundation repair experts. And anytime I, potentially bring on a new sponsor and a new endorser, I want to know how the business runs. And at KC Pier, what I liked right away is that when you call them, a real person in Kansas City picks up the phone. Not a call center, not a robot, a human who knows this town, knows the soil, and the concerns of Kansas City homeowners. On top of that, KC Pier is locally owned, and every single job is done by their own trained employees, not subcontractors. So that means they're accountable. It means consistency and quality as well. KC Pier gives you a lifetime transferable warranty. All right? Plus 1 and 2 year monitoring visits to make sure your foundation is performing the way it should. So if right now you're seeing some cracked walls, water in the basement, anything feels a little bit off, especially ahead of the big rains coming this weekend, protect your home equity and get KC Pier out for a structural consultation. They'll give you ABC solutions depending on your budget, what your home needs, why it needs it, and what makes sense for you. KC Pier, Kansas City owned and home with a lifetime warranty. Go to kcpier.com. That's kcpier.com.
from Leawood to Liberty. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Pete Hegseth just held a press conference and gave about a 10-minute address to the nation live at the Pentagon. We carried it here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And the big takeaway is that they are now talking about Operation Epic Fury in past tense. They called it an overwhelming victory. Here is part of what Pete Hegseth had to say this morning in this speech from 15 minutes ago.
Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury.
The victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. So is it over? I mean, does Israel know about this? Are they on board with this? There were some reports last night that Israel didn't love the ceasefire deal. Now, I'm not saying we should just do whatever makes Israel happy. They're a key ally, but they don't determine our foreign policy either. But are the other allies in the Middle East also on board with this? Because we have built a fascinating coalition of Middle Eastern allies, and maybe not allies, but people working together under a unified mission of stopping Iran. And that's been one of the major hurdles of getting anything done in that part of the world is you've got, too many chefs in the kitchen. So I assume those conversations were had last night into this morning, but I admit, that's not what I expected. I expected, hey, ceasefire is good. Here's what's next. Pressure stays on. If Iran even flinches on any of this stuff, they're going to have a problem on their hands. I did not expect to hear Operation Epic Fury referred to in the past tense. That was not something I expected to come out of this morning, John.
I'm with you there. I think that what you said still applies. They've got an eye on them. They're under a thumb for sure.
Yes.
So, one screw up there.
Yeah. Yes. I imagine it's a very short leash. So then when it, I believe, ultimately does happen that Iran screws this thing up, are we going to reignite Operation Epic Fury or does it get called something else?
Yeah.
Do we give it a new name? I don't know.
Hopefully they're in control of all these little groups that are around that can ruin it for everybody.
Well, that's a good point, too.
So
you're right
get
about
a grip
that.
on that or allow somebody to come in and police that.
Yes, you're right. So, that is something that I think that the optics of this is what the Pentagon is going for, the idea that, hey, things are winding down. And I just don't think they are. Not that I think that, we're going to be bombing the way we were a few weeks ago. My hope is that the ceasefire obviously leads to a deal that everybody's happy with. But it's not obvious to me that the people in charge of Iran are any less radical than they were 5 weeks ago. I don't see that, especially when there are reports during the overnight hours that you had Israel and Dubai shooting down drones. Or where was it here? Yeah, that's where the UAE said that they were actively taking incoming drone and missile attacks from Iran. So there's a lot of mixed messaging here. Iran's, I guess, on the verge of being in the Stone Ages, but they're still firing off missiles from Iran to the UAE and Israel. So, listen, I appreciate and that when it comes to believing in what this administration is attempting to do and has done, I'm on board. But it's never as black and white in war as one side wants to make it out to be. And this morning came off very black and white, and I just don't believe it is right now. I need to see more evidence of it. I can't just hear the words about it. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, we'll get to the market reaction from Alan Becker in 15 minutes. What about the drama at City Hall with Mayor Lucas next?
From Gladstone to Gardner, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
You know, I am just the Michael Jackson Thriller meme, sitting there with my bag of popcorn and just shoving it into my mouth as I watch Mayor Lucas and the Kansas City Star go to war with each other over perceived media bias. And I'm like, I'll sit this one out. I'll watch this. I'll have a lot of fun from the sidelines on this one. All right, I don't need to get in the middle here because I've been in it with the Kansas City Star. I've been in it with Mayor Lucas. And now I'm watching these two sides bang on each other nonstop the last 24 hours. This is great.
Yeah, there you go. A little joy with that vicarious thrill.
Oh, my goodness. So if you didn't see it, the Kansas City Star published a piece yesterday saying that the mayor's office in Kansas City audited the Kansas City Star's coverage for bias. And the mayor is denying requesting this audit. The Star writes here, Mayor Lucas's administration conducted an audit of the Star's coverage for perceived bias against city government in 2024. According to a former staffer who performed the review and a tranche of internal emails. But Lucas, in a pair of statements to the Star, vehemently denied ordering the audit. Based on Lucas's recollection, the review was, quote, voluntarily suggested and provided to us, he said here. This is written by Kason Bayless of the Kansas City Star. The extraordinary review of a media outlet's coverage revealed in emails obtained by the Star is unheard of in Kansas City politics. It sparked concern from First Amendment advocates who question the city's use of government resources to audit an independent media organization. The first mention of the review, called Kansas City Star Bias Report, came in a November 13th, 2024 email from a former assistant city manager. So the city government, which, by the way, just got a 1% earnings tax renewed yesterday because they insist they need your money to keep operations moving full steam ahead, has the time and the resources to do an audit on a newspaper in Kansas City for perceived bias against City Hall. What a joke. Now, after that piece was written yesterday, the Star then had its opinion columnists going after Mayor Lucas. You wonder if this had anything to do with his decision to not run for Congress. Now, listen, the news cycle's moving so quickly, this thing might be forgotten about in a couple of weeks. But if this had come out days after he announces he's going to run for Congress, I mean, just close up shop. Call it a day. You're done. He was not going to win anyway this year in that district against Mark Alford, but that would have been, I mean, a total embarrassment 1 week after you filed a run for office to then have this story come out against you in the Kansas City Star. But the Star opinion columnist David Hudnall wrote here, headline, Extra, extra, Mayor Lucas wants nicer coverage from the Kansas City Star. That's a good headline. That's a good headline. He says here, the mayor is a lawyer. We're reminded of that almost every time Quentin Lucas opens his mouth. Oh boy, this is getting good. I'm just sitting back and popping the popcorn, baby. Let's go. Ideas that could be communicated in simple declarative sentences are instead transmitted through a looping kind of legalese. Sometimes it makes him sound smart. Sometimes it doesn't. Oh, my gosh. Lucas also has a lawyer's instincts for pressure points, the tiny ambiguities and technicalities where a definition can be narrowed or responsibility can be blurred. That instinct serves lawyers well. It's less flattering in a mayor. Wow. Mayor Lucas versus the Star is not something that I thought I needed this week or really wanted this week, but we're getting it. This columnist goes on to note, Lucas denies that he is responsible for any of this. Instead, he describes the report as something that was voluntarily suggested and provided, whatever that means, and shifts the blame to a former assistant city manager. There's only one problem. The Star has the emails. we can read them with our own eyes. This is not going to sink Quinton Lucas. It's not. But here's what I would compare it to. The Star is supposed to be your friend. Let's be honest. The Star leans left, and that's me putting it politely. Okay? The opinion columnists are all on the left. They used to have a guy who was on the right, and Michael Ryan, and he's now joined the Herzog folks up in the Northland and does a very good job up there. So they don't have anybody coming at it from a different perspective on the editorial board. The newsroom also, at the very least, leans left. Now, I'll goof on it, but that's their prerogative. And, listen, like this reporting from Case and Bayless is very well done. I don't care if he leans left or right. It's good reporting. It's good journalism. But when you are a liberal Democrat mayor in Kansas City, and you've managed to piss off and potentially investigate one of your biggest supposed potential allies, the Kansas City Star, boy, you've really screwed things up. And now that you're a lame duck going into your final year in office, the World Cup's coming here, you still have murders that are way too high in Kansas City. Mayor Lucas will go down, barring a huge decline over the next 12 months, as the mayor who oversaw the deadliest tenure in Kansas City history. Those are just facts, not an opinion. Those are facts. Getting the Kansas City Star on your bad side when you do want to have a political future beyond the mayor's office is not the thing that you want to be doing. And with such a political miscalculation, and all I can think of and all I can read into is that it happens with politicians all the time. When they get into that second term or that final term and they're a lame duck, they just get sometimes arrogant. They just think that they're bulletproof. You see elements of this on both sides of the aisle, on local political levels, on state political levels, and on national political levels. All three of them. You see it all the time. It doesn't just apply to one side or the other. It's everybody. But Quinton Lucas not putting a stop to this the minute it came up to him potentially and say, listen, Star's going to do what the Star's going to do. Okay, this does not behoove us in any way to do an audit on the Kansas City Star's coverage of City Hall. What's the upside here? We find out they're biased against us? Who cares? What can you do about it? What are you going to do? Go back to the Star and be like, Kansas City Star, we have an internal audit of all of your stories about City Hall over the last few months, and we have come to the conclusion that you are biased against us. What are you going to do? Talk to a different newspaper in town? There's no one else to talk to. Like, what was your end goal here? So you could sit around at happy hour and talk about how you're getting screwed by the Kansas City Star? Who was going to cry crocodile tears for you on that one, by the way? And that's where people in government get lost. They don't have enough to do. There's too many bureaucrats. They're all looking for a reason to prove their worth. And then you get nonsense like this that screws everybody involved in the process. What was the point of any of this? To feel better about yourself, to sleep at night knowing that the Kansas City Star doesn't like us? Wow. Instead of just saying, hey, I think that some of these reporters or opinion columnists might not be on our side. I gotta get these guys and gals on our side. You can do that. The mayor's a great talker. He's likable when you are with him in a one-on-one setting. He'll win you over. He'll charm you over. He's good at that stuff. If that's what you have to do, just do it. You don't need an audit to get that done. The mayor could go schmooze anybody in this town and do a pretty darn good job of that. Why do you need some audit from the city assistant city manager on this stuff? It's like this was not well thought out. And now it's something that could be hampering the mayor as he looks to a future political career elsewhere.
Yeah, it's an expenditure of our money for an audit. He could have got correction to the Star listeners. He could have reached out to both of them and got it taken care of pretty quick.
Yep, exactly. It was not going to be difficult. In the meantime, I'm sitting here saying, you know what? I'll watch this one from afar And we'll talk to the mayor at this time tomorrow morning here on KCMO. Coming up, Alan Becker is going to join us. How are the markets reacting to, I guess, the supposed end of Operation Epic Fury? I don't know. That wasn't clear on what exactly the plan is, but the Dow futures are up 1,200 points. So the markets so far are liking things. We'll see what it means and talk to him about that coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio. In the meantime, you're walking around the house this morning. You're going to be around the house a lot this weekend with all the rain, and you're like, it's finally time to do something. It's time for that remodel. It's time for that upgraded kitchen, the bathroom. Well, when it comes down to it, what's the one thing you want? You want trust. And that is exactly what you get with our friends at CMP Construction here in Kansas City. They've been at it for decades in this town, and Chris and Teresa run a locally owned business, Kansas City company, and that's what matters to them. And they're doing it one room at a time. That's how they build trust with you in Kansas City, and that's how they've done it for decades now. It's not some big corporate remodeler. It's a team that treats your home the way that they would treat their own. Kitchens, bathrooms, basements, full remodels. CMP Construction does it all. With a focus on quality craftsmanship, clear communication, we all need that with any kind of remodel, and doing things the right way from start to finish. No pressure, no runarounds, just honest guidance and realistic expectations. That family-first approach is why people across Kansas City keep coming back to CMP Construction. And it's why they live by that slogan, building trust one room at a time. So if you're finally ready to make that move, they'll get you the free estimate. They'll do it in a few days. Go to their website. It's cmpremodel.com. That's cmpremodel.com. Or give them a call at 913-408-7578.
The fun's not done after Mundo in the Morning. Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Join me for Uncanceled at 10 o'clock right here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, the markets in the pre-trading hours are on fire right now as they appear to like the news of the ceasefire you had earlier this hour. The Pentagon announced, basically that Operation Epic Fury is over, I guess. They talked about it in past tense. Dow futures up 1,200 points. S&P up 173. NASDAQ's up 800 with the markets opening up in 40 minutes. Alan Becker's here. Joining us on KCMO Talk Radio, President and CEO of Retirement Solutions Group, and his show, Retire Right Radio, airs Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock. Alan, good morning. What's your read on the market reaction over the last 12 hours and what we should expect here coming up at 8:30?
Yeah, hi, Pete. Thanks for having me. Obviously a lot going on. Market's up, as you said, 2.64% on the futures right now. So, days like this don't create risk, they expose it. So obviously we're looking at, is Epic Fury over? Will the ceasefire hold? So all this uncertainty is what's moving the markets. And, it's not the fundamentals we're used to, you know what I mean? So it's not like we're looking at all the data of the companies and that's what's moving the market. Reminds me of the days when Elon would speak on X and the market would move 5 times in the day. It's the same thing, but oil's the catalyst.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a really interesting point. It feels like then the markets are very emotional right now and not really fundamental, to your point. So what's your advice to people to not get too emotional on days like this and in global moments like this?
Well, yeah, great way to put it. There are really 2 types of investing this morning, right? The first are those who already expected volatility and have a plan designed to handle it. The second are those that are surprised by what's happening and are trying to figure out, what to do, like to react to it. And that's the key. This is where you might sit down with your advisor, make sure you actually have a plan and not just working on hope. And, because you should be income for income, growth for growth, and safety for safety, and being able to weather the different storms that come. Because at the end of the day, this is going to be an overall blip in one's future investing. But to your point, also, if you react, right, you go to the sidelines and say, okay, there's a lot going on, I'm just going to sit on and wait. This is where a basic course in investing is. If you're not in the market on those good days, you're going to miss the majority of the growth. And we're already seeing a rally right now. So if you've gotten out on the fears of the war, right, you're sitting on the sidelines. Now the market's rallying. What are you going to do? Jump back in when the market's already rebound? You're going to miss a lot of those great days. And that's not what we advise.
That's a good point. So, and how much of this too, Alan Becker, is tied to, when you look at the markets right now, obviously the war is kind of the headline. But we've also seen a softening maybe around, hey, are these Mag 7 stocks, the Metas, the Teslas of the world and whatnot, the Googles, are they maybe over leveraging themselves to some degree in the AI race going on? Like when you look back at the fundamentals of the market, what are you seeing beyond the war right now?
Well, I think there's so much opportunity being created. You've got different IPOs that we expect coming out, people trying to figure out how to get into the SpaceXs of the world and that type of thing. You can see the growth in the AI sector. However, to me, I think it's more like data disks and beta and VHS. Who's going to win the race? So it's kind of like we're trying to get into this sector, but we don't know which one company is going to rise and be the winner, or if it's going to be several. So it's really taking a balanced approach and really being strategic about your investing. Is this more for short-time growth, long-term stability so that you have income in retirement, or are you trying to get some fast money right now? So I think your age, your risk tolerance, all of that plays in, but it's really keeping straight to a plan, right? Not just letting the emotion drive your decisions.
Yeah. And when you think about that, from the standpoint of someone like, if you're under 40 like me, that's a different approach than if you're over 60 and you've got, 5 years or less to retirement. How would you balance that right now during what has been kind of a roller coaster ride in the markets?
So I look at income, growth for growth, and safety for safety. I really feel that there's 3 industries. There's the banking industry, there's the insurance industry, and the securities industry. And I don't think you have to be loyal to one. You should have a diversification between the 3. Because, if the markets are down right now, you're going to want to go from somewhere else. So I'll give you a quick example. This weekend, I took my son out to Tulsa to see a country concert. I made the choice to take my wife's car because I drive a diesel and her gas is $1.50 cheaper per gallon. So you make choices right now. And that's what I think people really need to do, because the next effect is going to be, it's not that we don't get oil from the Gulf. That's not really our thing. We only get, 98% of our oil doesn't come from the Gulf. It's the other supporting things that help with our food, the plastics and the ammonia and that kind of stuff for fertilizers. So that's what we're worried about, is where that's going to trickle down after this, stranglehold kind of ends.
Mm-hmm.
So just being well balanced on the whole portfolio and looking at it as a whole of where is I like the old Wayne Gretzky analogy, where's the puck going? So, I want to be where it's going to be. So it's being strategic about your investing and staying vigilant to what you've tried to create, and not trying to derail it just because of fear.
And in the final minute, Alan, the labor market has remained strong amidst all of this. How big of a component is that to the market staying strong in the weeks and months to come?
Well, another thing on your under 40, also get some dry powder. I forgot to tell you that. Dry powder meaning have some cash on the side, because when you find that opportunity to deploy, you want to have it there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the labor market obviously is good when it's strong. I think the big concern on labor right now is, where is AI going to replace? What jobs are going to be solid? I've got young kids. I think you have 3 girls. I have 3 boys. It's trying to figure out what are they going to do in the future and what jobs will still be here once they go through school. So, labor is definitely something we have to watch, and it's a shifting vehicle itself because of AI and robots and technology and automation.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an excellent point. That we could do a whole nother conversation on that. My goodness. Alan Becker, President, CEO of Retirement Solution Groups on KCMO, and his show Retire Right, Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock. Alan, great stuff. Thank you for being here on KCMO on a busy news day. We'll be watching the markets, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Great stuff there from Alan Becker on KCMO Talk Radio. We've got the news coming up at the top of the hour. How are our local politicians reacting to what's gone on the last 24 hours with Operation Epic Fury? We'll tell you next. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth seemingly announcing the end of Operation Epic Fury this morning in a press conference at the Pentagon last hour. We carried it live here on KCMO. It's not what I expected. It's not clear to me how that works, considering the ceasefire is in place to now figure out a negotiation that makes both sides happy. I don't know how that's going to work. It caught me off guard, I admit, this morning. Here is what Pete Hegseth had to say in that announcement last hour.
Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury.
All right, there you go. We gave it to you twice just for good charm. Good luck. The decisive victory we just achieved, he says, in Operation Epic Fury. I admit, I don't know how it's over if we are just in a 2-week ceasefire and Iran is bombing or sending missiles towards our allies in the last few hours. I don't understand that. I don't know how that works. It seems like a very obvious question to ask right now. I mean, I guess I could sit here and just say, boy, what a win. We got him. Everything is great. Look at the market. Woo, this is fantastic. Or, I mean, I think it's reasonable to take a step back and say, how does this work exactly? How is it over? Now, I'm not questioning the strategy from the president, who I know yesterday was like, we're going to wipe Iran off the face of the earth. And people were like, oh my gosh, we're hours away from World War III and nuclear war, and he's going to kill 90 million Iranians. No, he's not. Okay, that was never going to happen. It was not going to be part of the plan. And as I noted last night, it's one of the last things I posted on social media before I put my head on the pillow and called it a night and went to sleep. I put it up on my Facebook page, Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. It was a very simple post that read as follows. To those who knew Trump was not going to vaporize 90 million people tonight, congratulations. You passed the easiest IQ test of all time. And that's true. And, you know, if maybe that wasn't you, I don't know. Some may say.
A mentally retarded person.
I don't know who would have bought into that. I don't know. But I also know this morning, I mean, do I feel like this Operation Epic Fury is just magically done now? No. Do I want it to be done? Sure. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I'd love for it to be over. But Iran's 10-point plan, their request on removing sanctions, making sure that we're never aggressive, allowing Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz. Like, they have a 10-point demand plan. And most of this we would be insane to agree to. And by the way, if they're back in the Stone Age, how could they demand any of this? Like, these are just all the questions that I have this morning. And I think it's reasonable to put these questions out there. They want compensation for war damage. They don't want any U.S. forces, like, anywhere near Iran. Like, we can't agree to any of this. There's no way. So if we're in a 2-week ceasefire, great. De-escalation, fantastic. Oil prices coming down, and we're seeing that already this morning. Markets are up. Awesome. I love it. But, I mean, I think if you're sitting here doing a happy dance thinking like everything's just hunky-dory this morning and everything's great, I mean, war's over, fantastic, let's go back to normal, I don't know what that's based on. And yes, I voted for these guys, and I'd vote for them today if there was another election today. I'm still not going to just sit here and blindly assume, yep, these guys absolutely rah-rah, full steam ahead. It's all done. Everything's back to normal. And it's not even about them. It's about the other side of the negotiating equation, and that's the people in charge in Iran, which I've seen no evidence to suggest that they're any less radical than all the guys that we've killed. So I'm more confused right now than I was 2 hours ago when I started the show. And frankly, more skeptical than I was 2 hours ago when I started the show. So this is going to be, I think, a very good day for the markets. Oil prices coming down dramatically. But like everything, when there's an overreaction on the downside, I say, hey, the market's overreacting to this on the downside. Today, it looks like it's going to be an overreaction on the upside is what it's going to be. Now, all that being said, did you see what Sharice Davids put up on social media yesterday? Johnson County, of course, Congresswoman, 3rd District here in Kansas. She shared the president's Truth Social from yesterday morning that got everybody up in arms when he said a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. He said, I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. It was a classic example. Did I like the post? No, not really. But it was classic vintage Trump. You got to take the good with maybe the not so good, and you got to realize this is what this guy has done for 11 years on the political side, and it's what he's done for 40 years on the business side. A lot of bluster, a lot of noise. You don't take it literally, but you take him seriously. That's always been the approach. But Sharice Davids had to jump on the bandwagon yesterday and right here, quote, I'm beyond concerned by the president's rhetoric now more than ever. Wiping out an entire civilization is not a strategy or a negotiating tactic. It's reckless, extreme escalation, and it should alarm all of us. I mean, come on. Jeez. Yeah, thank you, Sharice Davids, for letting us know that wiping out an entire civilization is not a good strategy. I would agree with that. But once again, that's you taking the post very literally. She writes here, keeping our country safe and protecting American lives takes steady, disciplined leadership and sound judgment, not off-the-cuff comments that risk pulling us into something far more dangerous. Can I take a guess on this post? I think this post was AI generated.
I would think the same.
I'm just
Co-written
looking
at least.
I'm looking at the way that it's written. I'm looking at the style. I'm looking at the use of certain words, and it just feels AI generated and AI written. That's what it looks like to me.
I think Windows 11 has a template for to fill in.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you use those M dashes, anytime you see a lot of those M dashes, that is classic AI. If you put in anything in the Chat GPT or any of the other ones, and there's a bunch of those M dashes in it, that's a dead giveaway. It's AI. And she's got multiple M dashes in this post. And I'm telling you, if you are looking at emails, if you are looking at, anything online, if you see an overuse of the M dash, then it's AI. 9 times out of 10. And she's got multiple M dashes in this post. So whatever, do with that information what you want. But I don't know why Sharice Davids felt so compelled to go down this road as if, yes, Trump was actually going to go out there and nuke 92 million people in Iran, when from day one, the goal was to give the Iranian people a chance at having a better country with much better leadership that more identifies with the West, to give opportunities to women and give opportunities to other people who don't have those luxuries in places like Iran right now. They don't. And we'd like to see them have those opportunities because it would be a win for the United States in the process as well, not having to deal with a regime that has been chanting death to America for 50 years now. You would think that Sharice Davids would acknowledge that at the very least and maybe not support it. I get it. You know, the political leanings are what they are right now. She can't come out here and support the guy on this, but you would think she wouldn't want to overreact at this moment to a post like this. But it also goes to show you, she realizes that the 3rd District is no longer a swing district. She can say whatever she wants about Trump, and she'll be fine. She's not going anywhere. She's going to get reelected. I don't even think she has an opponent right now. 913-4087-957. Before we get to, let's squeeze in a call before the break. Let's go to John. He's in Blue Springs. What's up, John?
Hey, I just want to say I like that Trump is unpredictable and that people think he's crazy. I like the bombastic post even. I am, look, don't come to me one more time, Republican or Democrat, wanting my vote with one of these sissy, soy, spineless cowards. I'm not voting for him again. The Barack Obamas, the George Bushes, I just set out an election. I'm not voting for these spineless, feminized dudes. That's all I got to say.
Okay. All right. I mean, there's a lot of things to say about George W. Bush. I'm not sure spineless and feminine is what I would put in there. But I understand everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Not that Bush, trust me, Bush was, I think that especially when it comes to foreign policy, history has not been kind to George W. Bush and frankly should not be kind to George W. Bush. Not sure I'd call him a sissy, but to each their own. Here's the thing, though. And this is like classic Trump, right? He wants you to think he's nuts. And maybe sometimes he is a little crazy. It's entirely possible. Sometimes he's a little nuts.
He's a nut job.
But he also loves when the media overreacts to his crazy. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. All that being said, where this all goes this morning is still TBD. 913-4087-957. Colby's in Olathe. What's up, Colby?
Hey, Pete, isn't that surprising that little perverted cockroach, Sharice Davis, is going to comment and worry about Trump, about knocking out civilization, but yet she'll march around with the shirt on that says, "My hero killed colonizers."
Yeah, I mean, that sure goes back to the first time she ran in 2018, I guess that would have been,
Yeah,
And,
yeah. They actually implemented the strategy.
Yeah.
Trump is just propagandizing is all.
Well, you know
anyway,
what?
That's it.
She's got the district on lockdown, brother. She does, and she knows it.
Not for long.
Well, at least through this election cycle, I don't think she's going to have any opponent that's worth anything as far as I can tell.
Well, I think there's not many people see it, but I think there is a underlying current where people are actually seeing that.
Based on what?
Just from what I see, that people are seeing that enough of this. They're done with the I'm going to vote on my feelings rather than logic.
Well, Colby, I appreciate you, but keep dreaming, brother. I see no evidence to suggest that that's happening in this election cycle, none whatsoever, especially in the 3rd District of Kansas. I'd like to be wrong, and if you're right, you call me back and you tell me what a fool I am in November. I will gladly take that call, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. She's totally safe. 913-4087-957. It's 8:18 on a Wednesday morning. 913-408-7957 is our studio line and our text line on KCMO Talk Radio. We'll get to Patrick Tuohy coming up at the bottom of the hour. Now, what about the Pope is what is the Pope saying about all this? We got the Pope involved. We'll share it next.
Vince Colonnese here. Join me for your lunch hour from 11 to 2 on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
So Pope Leo's in the mix here. Pope Leo talked to Reuters yesterday after the president's post on Truth Social, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. He goes on to say here, God bless the great people of Iran. Of course, those are very antithetical statements. Now, as I've said since yesterday, since the post came out, don't like the post, doesn't really make sense, not really helpful, but if your immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, Trump's going to nuke 90 million people, you're looking for a reason to be overworked about something that was never going to happen. All right? That's just, you're grasping for something from Trump's social media instead of just taking it for what it is, which is just Trump being a big mouth on social media. Now, that being the case, the Pope talked to Reuters yesterday. Now, we know what Reuters is. I wish the Pope would just tell Reuters, listen, take a hike. We know what Reuters wants to do, what their lean is, whatever. But Pope Leo said that the threats against Iran were unacceptable. He adds here, quote, today, as we all know, there was this threat against the entire people of Iran, and this is truly unacceptable, said the Pope. He said, quote, there are certainly issues here of international law, but even more than that, it is a moral question for the good of the world's people. So the Pope was speaking yesterday to journalists outside of his home in Italy. And he called on citizens across the world to contact their political representatives and ask them to bring the expanding regional conflict to an end. He says here, people want peace. I would invite the citizens of all countries involved to contact the authorities, political leaders, congressmen, to ask them for world peace. He urged people to, quote, remember especially the innocent children, the elderly, the sick, so many people who have already become or will become victims of this continued warfare. The Pope also said the attacks on civilian infrastructure are against international law. So the Pope's got a lot to say. And while I have respect for what the Pope is getting at there, obviously, wanting peace, not wanting war. I mean, we all want that. But what do you do if your intelligence tells you that the United States and or our allies could be living in a world where we are permanently under nuclear threat from leadership in Iran? What do you do? There clearly has been a plan here to take out the leadership in Iran while making sure the Iranian people suffer as little as possible or don't suffer at all. That's obviously been the goal here from the get-go, which is why, you know, Trump's thing yesterday about the Iranian people, it's like, why are we doing this? What's the point? Like, it was never going to be a real thing that was going to happen last night at 8:01 Eastern time. Actually helping the Iranian people and giving them a chance has been the goal for a long time. That's been one of the main goals and tenets of the whole Operation Epic Fury. So I understand where the Pope is coming from. And I respect where the Pope is coming from. I really do. But I also think that it's not as black and white sometimes as the Pope may want to make it out to be when he makes statements like that. And that's why if I'm him, listen, he's had a busy week, okay? We're coming off the holiest of holy holidays. But it's something right now that I think we got to pump the brakes on here. Dave in Lee Summit. What's up, Dave?
Yeah, Pete, good morning. I'm not anti-religious whatsoever, but my question is, where was the Pope whenever Iran killed 50,000 of their own people?
Yeah, you know, here's the thing. I don't know. I would have to go back and see if the Pope said anything about that. It's a good question. But here's what I do know. The media is not running to the Pope, and that's what this is really about. Reuters will go find the Pope when they can use the Pope to go against President Trump. That's how the media can manipulate stories like this.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. I've looked up, and maybe I'm not looking all in the right places, but I've never seen any comments by the Pope whenever Iran killed their own people.
I don't know, to your point. I really don't. I'd have to look it up as well. But it's more about I think if you're the Pope or anybody in politics, understanding what an outlet like Reuters is trying to do. And what they want to do is create a headline of the Pope is against Donald Trump. Like, that's it. That's the game. And once you realize what the game is, then if you're the Pope, you got to come to the conclusion of, I'm not playing that game. I'm not getting in the media game to play TDS. Patrick Tuohy on the earnings tax vote yesterday, coming up next.
from the nation's heartland. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Earnings tax passing with flying colors yesterday in Kansas City. Patrick Tuohy is here with the Show Me Institute on KCMO. That means if you are a Kansas City resident, you're paying 1% of your income to Kansas City. Even if you don't, it doesn't matter if you work in Kansas City or not. If you are a Kansas City resident, you're paying the earnings tax. And then if you work in Kansas City but don't live in Kansas City, you are also paying the earnings tax. So I know one of those no votes in Kansas City yesterday came from Patrick Tuohy, but he was outnumbered 3-1. Good morning, Patrick. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great, Pete. How are you?
I'm feeling good, but I'm not paying the earnings tax in another 5 years. You are. So why are you feeling great?
Right. Well, the outcome wasn't unexpected.
Yes.
I don't know that there was any opposition. I'll have to look up what the supporters paid. But if you go and look over the last 2 weeks, here are the things that supporters of the earnings tax said on the record. It is regressive. It harms the local economy. It allows for the lavish subsidy culture in Kansas City. It hurts the working poor, and it is evil. Evil. All those things were said by people who support the earnings tax. So
wait, who are the supporters who said that?
It was on KSHB Monday night. It was Bridget Williams says the earnings tax is a necessary evil. I mean, she said it was evil, and I think she's running the Yes campaign. So again, it is a moral victory because all the arguments against the earnings tax have been conceded. The problem is that the people who say that they're progressive, that they care about the working poor, that they want Kansas City to grow, that they want an equitable government, are not living up to those principles. So, the next 5 years, if these people are serious, and we will see if they are serious, they need to figure out a way that is an equitable, positive, just way to fund city government.
Well, I think the opposite's going to happen because Mayor Lucas said last night in the victory speech, hey, my message to, well, let's just play it here. Here was Mayor Lucas last night.
I have just one little request. Because once again, it looks like we will win with a very strong number. It was 77% last time. As of right now, with 30,000 votes in, we're sitting at 75%. To my friends in the Missouri legislature, I love you. God bless you. Do not make us have to do this again in 5 years.
So the mayor is saying, Patrick, he wants it to stay, and he doesn't want to have to renew it every 5 years. So that seems like the opposite approach of what you want.
Oh, sure. And look, I don't doubt that the mayor doesn't want the people to have to weigh in on taxes. I get it. Of course he would have that position. If I were mayor, I wouldn't want the people to have to check in on what I want to do either. But this is the system we have. The city should absolutely have to defend its taxing and spending. Of course they should. But they just need to do a better job of it. And again, the institutions, the foundations, the Kansas City Star, the KC Library, all these people that like to cluck their tongue about a just city need to put up, or else it'll show that they just don't mean it. They just don't care.
We had some callers yesterday, Patrick, admit this is bad policy, but I'm voting yes. Some of them were retirees who said, hey, if we don't get this thing passed, they're going to raise my property taxes. They're going to raise my sales taxes. And right now, if I'm retired, you know what? I've paid it for a bunch of years, and I don't want to have my taxes go up elsewhere, even though they don't pay it right now. So that block of voters is one that I didn't think much about. But it makes sense, and I appreciate their honesty when they say, hey, you know what? What's good for me is to keep the earnings tax because I'm not paying it anymore anyway as a retiree.
Yeah, no, and people who are wealthy in Kansas City who earn their income off of investments don't pay it either. That's part of the problem. The part of the problem is even if you live in a household in Kansas City that is exempt from federal taxes because your income is below a certain level, you still have to pay the earnings tax. This is exactly what makes it regressive. This is exactly what, if you're supposedly a progressive, you should hate. And yet, when push comes to shove, they just shrug and say, oh, what can you do? Well, part of the problem in Kansas City is not revenue. The problem in Kansas City is spending. Listen, in Kansas City, we spend over $4,400 per person. And that is much higher than all the municipalities around us. And even with the earnings tax, our mayor says we have a $55 million deficit. The problem isn't revenue. The problem is spending. And yes, of course, they're always going to say, oh, if you cut our tax, we're going to, kill puppies and fire firefighters and police officers. They always say that. It's the easiest argument for them to make. But what we need to do is take the money away from them and have them live within their means. Because again, you're never going to get a politician to say we're bringing in too much money. You're never going to get that.
Yes.
They're going to spend every bit we give them and more. And so the argument that there's no plan B is BS. They have no incentive to come up with a plan B because, again, why would you?
But this guy's point, and I think it's a fair one to make. Listen, I agree with you 100%. But the point he's making is even if this earnings tax were to go away, do you believe that the politicians would then say, shucks, we got to live within our means? Or would they just jack up taxes everywhere else and abuse you in other ways? I think it's the latter.
They would certainly want to. They would absolutely want to. But again, that's what we've got right now, right? So at best, you're saying, well, we'll move from one bad system to an equally bad system. What I'm saying is we're going to have to vote to restrict them, to give them less money and make them, deliver basic services in an efficient way. But the broader picture that people in Kansas City need to understand is effectively Kansas City is disappearing. We are not growing as fast as the country. We are not growing as fast as the municipalities around us. We are a failing city, frankly. I love this place, but government is not doing us justice. And if we think that the status quo is adequate, we're going to continue to fall behind. And so it's not just a matter of the earnings tax per se. Kansas City has got to figure out all sorts of ways to deliver services more efficiently so that you and people like you in the area look at Kansas City and say, that is a good place to live. That's a good place to raise a family. I want to move there. And right now they're not doing that.
All right, Patrick Tuohy on KCMO Talk Radio. So with that being the case, why has there been no coordinated effort on the no side for years now on this? Because it would seem to me, you could, why not have some big-time donors across Missouri advocate for a no vote in Kansas City and see how it goes? Because we've never really tested that. And my understanding of state law is that if the e-tax were to go away, proponents can't just put it back on a ballot and bring it back. Once it's done, it's gone. At least that's my understanding of the state law. So why has there not been a coordinated no effort on this?
Well, that's a great question, Pete. Why don't you put me in touch with some of your wealthy friends, and in 5 years, we'll put together that campaign.
Well, how about the Show Me Institute? They've got some nice donors over there.
Well, we can't, of course, advocate for or against ballot measures because we're a nonprofit.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, fair point.
But our job is just to let people know, here's what's at stake. Yes, it's frustrating that that people didn't stand up and fight for this. But, part of the problem in Kansas City is that all the people who give a damn about good government, about starting a business, who want their children educated, so many of them have already left the city because they can. And that's, again, part of the problem with the earnings tax is it provides one more incentive for people to pick up and leave the city. And not too long ago, Pete, you were living in Kansas City. You paid the earnings tax, and the decision you made was to get out of Dodge.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. All right. Patrick Tuohy on KCMO. I'll work on that. I'll call up some rich friends after the show, and I'll tell them to call Patrick, and he will campaign and run the operation for 2031. Sound like a plan?
That sounds like a great plan, Pete. Thank you.
All right. There you go. Thank you, Patrick. Great stuff.
Take care.
All right. See you later. He is adding something else that he's got to work on for the next 5 years. He's got to keep Kansas City in check, Show Me Institute. He's got to occasionally fill in on KCMO, and then he's got to run that campaign in 5 years. All right. I'm just putting more on Patrick Tuohy's plate. 3 questions on a What If Wednesday we will get to coming up next right here on KCMO. All right. Talk about being out of time. I'm out of time in the segment, but I'm also out of time in life, just in general, with 3 little kids. How can I save time? Well, saving myself 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes in the grocery store, that's a good way to do it. Hy-Vee is helping me, and they're helping you with that. They'll do the shopping for you right on the Hy-Vee app, or go to Hy-Vee.com. Pick your items. They'll do the shopping. You pick it up right at Hy-Vee. Do it with the kids all the time. Or if you are a Perks Plus member like I am, they'll deliver it to your house for free. Get it done now, only at Hy-Vee.
From Overland Park to Parkville, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
It's 8:50. It's a Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. Let's roll it.
95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. It's time for What If Wednesday.
What if, instead of having you on this radio station, there was somebody else?
All right, John, 3 questions on What If Wednesday. What is on your rundown?
What if this spring the baseball team are the top dogs on the KU campus?
Man, that would be exciting. I like college baseball. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. It's really growing in popularity across the SEC. It's always been good down there, but it's really growing in popularity. And I'm starting to see signs of it in the Big 12 conference. And KU is like all in on baseball. They are inviting students out. They're making a big deal about it on social media. And last night, KU baseball ended up with a 5-3 win over 19th ranked Nebraska. They've won 13 of 15. They're taking on number 12 UCF this weekend. And if they do that, if they win that series, I believe they'll be in first place in the Big 12. It's just fun. Like, I think college baseball is one of those sports that, as athletic departments try to figure out how to make more money. And that's what it is. It's an arms race to make more money. If you can lean into baseball, and if you can get 5,000 to 10,000 fans out there a night for a baseball game, which is more likely in the SEC, not really the case in the Big 12 yet at a place like KU. But if you have those goals and you've got, 20 some odd home games, give or take, can be a nice little revenue boost for you. Why not?
It's right out there outside of Allen Fieldhouse. It's a cool view of the campus. And then you've got, fans in the Hog, they call it. It's Hogland Stadium, so they call their student section the Hog section.
I've been over there. It's on I don't know what direction that would be. I'm visualizing Allen Fieldhouse to the left of Allen Fieldhouse. So the south side, yes, the south side of Allen Fieldhouse. And it's a nice little stadium. I don't know what it holds. Probably not that many people. But KU's been going wild on social media, too, kind of promoting the fan interaction. The fandom's been great. The students have been going wild. And I think it's a smart play by KU. I know K-State's had, a couple of decent years in baseball as well. I like it. I think it's fun. Gives college kids something else to do in the springtime. And now that the weather's starting to get better, it's the best time of year to be out there and doing it. So, hey, the Royals lost yesterday, but a lot of conversation about KU baseball right now. So I'm all in. I think it's a smart play, John, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, this spring hoops was not quite what it usually is.
Yes.
Baseball's top dog. Hey, what if the earnings tax had failed yesterday in Kansas City?
Well, there would have been a big press conference today, and the mayor would have said, I'm about to hike your property taxes and your sales taxes, and the city's going to hell in a handbasket, and we're never going to survive, and how dare you?
How dare you?
Turn down the earnings tax for this great city. That's what it would have been. It would have been part pity party and part wagging the finger at the residents.
Oh, the World Cup, I don't know.
Yeah, can we still pull it off without the... Yeah, that's exactly what would have happened. All doom and gloom, woe is me, but woe is you. They would have punished Kansas City. That's what they would have done. They would not have said, boy, we got to figure out how to get this budget and get our house in order at $2.6 billion, $4,400 per resident. That's not what they would have done. They would have browbeat Kansas City. And you know what? I would have liked to have seen it. The theatrics of it would have been interesting and compelling content for me. And by the way, it would be better for Kansas City in the long run. Even though there would be some short-term pain, I believe it would have been in Kansas City's best interest long-term. But it passed easily yesterday. 75% of Kansas Cityans voted to approve and move ahead and continue with the earnings tax that's been in place since 1963. So now we have to wait 5 years. But don't worry, Patrick Tuohy's on it. He said on the record he's willing to run the campaign against the earnings tax next time around. So we'll see how it goes, John.
It's funny. We would have heard of all the tragic things that were going to happen After it phased out in 10 years.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. Yep.
What if more Americans believed Trump was going to nuke Iran than the Iranians?
Then it tells you that we've got some very stupid people, as Trump would say, some very stupid people in this country. He really likes to emphasize, words like that when he's talking.
Stupid?
Yes, that's what he would have done. So, for me, the takeaway since the Trump post yesterday has been a very simple one. Do I think that threatening to take out all of Iran is a beneficial strategy? No. Do I think there's any upside to it? No. Do I think there's some downside to it? Yeah, I think it sends people into a tizzy. Maybe that's the point, though. Maybe Trump just really likes the idea of everybody thinking he's nuts.
He does.
I think he thrives on that.
Keep him guessing.
Yeah. But if you really thought that the president of the United States was hours away from nuking 90 million people in Iran, you got to go touch some grass. I don't care how much you hate Trump. You can hate him all you want. You can dislike him. That's your prerogative. It's America. But come on. Have a little bit of common sense. Get off of TikTok. Stop doom scrolling. Stop watching certain cable news channels. And just realize for 11 years, this is what he's done. He's been a big mouth. He has tried to be a bully. That's his style. You don't have to like it, but it's who he's been for years. And with that, somebody else who couldn't help themselves yesterday, we'll talk about right after the top of the hour news. So the breaking news is that the president of the United States has paused the Iran strikes as they negotiate a peace deal. This morning, Pete Hegseth referred to Operation Epic Fury in past tense. Coming up today at 12 o'clock, Caroline Leavitt is going to do a White House press briefing, and I think it's critical we get some clarity on what exactly is going on here. Is the war over, or is the war not over? It would seem to me that you'd be losing some leverage if you say Operation Epic Fury is done. Because if you do that, well, then the Iranians actually get somewhat of an upper hand here in all this. If you're going around saying the war's over and you're still negotiating some type of peace deal, then what does that say? Because the Iranians could be like, hey, you're telling everyone the war's over, guys, and let's go. That's the only thing that I could think of right now that actually could give Iran some type of negotiating chip in all this, John.
Trump's going to announce the big, beautiful surrender later. Big, beautiful surrender.
Oh, that's great. So I can't figure out if that was Pete Hegseth accidentally maybe getting out over his skis, if that is something that was intentional, if he took that into his own hands, if someone didn't proofread the script, I don't know. But it would seem to me that you actually lose a little bit of negotiating power if you sit there and say the war's over when you're still trying to negotiate whatever this peace deal potentially is going to be. That's where just my head is at.
The operation is over, I guess. It's going to be like DC Comics or Marvel or something. We got part 2 coming with a new name, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. That could have been season 1 of Operation Epic Fury.
There you go.
Season 2 could start,
Could be coming this fall.
As soon as
or
next
this
week.
summer, yeah.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly. That could be part of what's going on here. But still, people are in full meltdown mode as well over the post from yesterday. And you know who had to jump in the conversation, right? You know who had to say something about this. Come on, you know who it is. We had to hear from Kamala Harris. We had to. Kamala Harris jumped in yesterday saying the president of the United States is threatening to commit war crimes and wipe out a whole civilization. M-dash, there it is again, the M-dash. AI. No one used M-dashes before AI. Now everybody is. The M-dash is the big hyphen. If you're seeing a lot of big hyphens in articles or social media posts, strong possibility it could be AI generated. Anyway, all because he started a disastrous war of his own making and had no plan and no strategy for how to end it. This is abhorrent, and the American people do not support it. Trump's recklessness is needlessly putting our brave service members in harm's way, destroying America's global standing and making life even more unaffordable for the American people. We must all stand against this and oppose funding this illegal war of choice. Boy, that is rich. That is so rich on so many levels. The VP who oversaw the highest inflation numbers in 40 years and was totally neutered. I mean, I guess not her, but her boss, totally neutered on the global stage, is now worried about America's global standing and unaffordability for the American people. I mean, spare me that. It's like we were all just in a coma from January of 21 till January of 25. That's one that she may want to sit out. I'm just saying. Now, the other thing that's come out this morning, and I want to get your thoughts on this and know how you feel about this at 913-408-7957. There are some thoughts that Iran wants to charge any type of ship from coming through the Strait of Hormuz. And the president is open to the idea if we get a cut of it. Now, this is Trump putting on his negotiating hat. This is Trump putting on the old real estate hat. But this is one right now, at least, where I'm like, I'm not really digging that idea. Because here's the thing. If we allow the Iranians to charge a toll for ships in the Strait of Hormuz, then theoretically, every time especially the Europeans, but even the Americans in an indirect way, fill up their cars at the pump, you'll put money into the pockets of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And that would be a humiliating disaster for the United States. You can't have Pete Hegseth out there this morning saying these guys are in the Stone Ages and then somehow negotiating where they can make money on every single ship coming through the Strait of Hormuz. How would they have that kind of leverage right now if they're in the Stone Ages? Like that doesn't even make sense to me from a negotiating standpoint. But where this came from, now you do with this what you want, but Jonathan Karl of ABC News, who I know, listen, the guy's out on the left side of the aisle. There's no doubt about it. But he's got direct access to the president. He has talked on his social media about how when he calls Trump's cell phone, Trump picks up and talks to him. And he's like amazed. He's like, I've never had a president do this where I call them and they pick up and they just talk to me. So for all the talk about like ABC and Carl and like fake news, Trump talks to these people. That's a fact. So this morning, John Karl posted here, I just asked the president if he's okay with the Iranians charging a toll for all ships that go through the Strait of Hormuz. And he told me there may be a joint U.S.-Iran venture to charge tolls. Trump said, quote, we're thinking of doing it as a joint venture. It's a way of securing it, also securing it from lots of other people. It's a beautiful thing. That is the quote from Jonathan Karl. Now, is this Trump kind of, moving the chess pieces around the board and doing some 3D chess? Maybe. If you're asking me what I think of that idea, though, that's a bad idea.
Get some Somali pirates cruising around there to collect,
Yeah.
You right there. Stop that air carrier. You pay?
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a very good point. So it's all a moving target right now. I don't know what the news cycle is going to be in 6 hours. Heck, I don't know what it's going to be in 6 minutes at this point, okay? I mean, I might come back from break and there's new news coming out on this stuff. I don't know. But oil's down 18% this morning, down to $92 a barrel. And the markets are up big time this morning as well on what has been a busy last 12 hours of news. 913-408-7957. Stu is on KCMO at Rosedale. What's up, Stu?
Hey, Mundo. All these, the business of charging ships to go through the straits, and it's all the finer points. But the essence of Trump's negotiation is a done deal, and it's because of the basic principle behind Trump's method of negotiation. It's like negotiating with the Godfather. Trump makes his demands, and the person he's negotiating with says, well, that's, you're asking for all of this stuff. What are you going to do for us? And Trump says, what I'm going to do for you is I might let you live. And everything after that is just working out the details.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. The question, too, for me, Stu, is it's fine to let them live if you want to let them live. But who's in charge, right? Because as I understand it, and I know as you understand it, that was a big part of Israel's goal here. And as a result, our goal, which is to make sure the lunatics who have been running the place for 50 years are not like-minded to the last 47 years of that regime.
Well, even a lunatic, you have to presume that even a lunatic wants to still be alive tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what Trump is telling him. You make the deal, and I might let you still be alive tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
It's a great way to negotiate. It's like negotiating with John Gotti.
Yeah. That's a good one, Stu. Thank you. It's a good point. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. Bill in Osborne. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I think this is a really bad idea, and I think if we want to get out of the Middle East, we ought to get out of the Middle East and concentrate on the Americas. And if they wanted to stay, then they should have created a government in exile, and they should have started training young Iranian men to fight under the Shah to, drive these IRG people out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have no will to do that. And
nor should we.
If they want to do something, then take Carg Island and then put the screws on them.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the soldiers over there to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you're right, though. There is no appetite to do any kind of nation building, and there should not be any appetite for any kind of nation building.
They need to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But they obviously have to have a country where they can even get to that place, and it's not clear right now that that's anywhere close to happening, right? There's been a couple of names of different people that have come up in the conversation as like, hey, these are the guys that we'd like to see take this thing over. But it's just not as easy as maybe it was in Venezuela or a South American country because of how different these places are and how extreme they are. And clearly they still have the wherewithal to fire off missiles, which they were doing overnight, during the overnight hours to the UAE and Israel.
And they have the inability to shut it off.
Yes.
They don't even have any control over it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good point, Bill.
I don't know. We have bases in Kuwait and stuff like that where we could start training young men to do this. And obviously there were plenty that wanted to when they lost, 37,000 people. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Victor in Parkville. What's up, Victor?
Oh, two things. First, to address what Bill's point was. Back in those days in 1979 when the hostages were taken, they immediately cut a deal with the Soviet Union. So the world was completely different. So if we would have done anything having to do with Iran at the time, the Soviet Union would have gotten involved. And you want to talk about a global conflict. But most importantly, I wanted to call about Kamala Harris. Sometimes, little missy, war is not a choice, but capitulation always is. And you SOBs on the Democratic Party, in the new Democrat Party, consistently capitulate, which is why we're in the situation we're in. And, of course, I also blamed George W. Bush, but that's another subject altogether. So.
Listen, he did not do himself any favors when it comes to his legacy in that part of the world. And the reason Trump's in the White House is because I really think that Trump's messaging in 2015, 2016 on the disaster that was the Middle East for the last 15 years at that point is reason number one and or two as to why he ended up winning the nomination and winning the White House.
Absolutely. And I certainly hope that this whole epic fury being over isn't another one of those, mission success thing with the aircraft carrier. Because, the Dems are going to glam onto this. If anything happens after this, they're going to say, wait, you said it was over. You said it was over. Wait a second. No, it's not over.
It's not
over till the bad guys are done and everything's taken care of. So
well, that's what I mean. They've set themselves up, and that's where I wonder if Hegseth got out over his skis or something. Because I'm like, why would you say that this morning?
Absolutely. He could have just been talking about the beginning part is done. I agree with you. I don't think it's done at all. Not until
it literally by definition can't be done.
I agree. And I don't agree with charging to get through the Gulf of Hormuz. They're supposed to be the seas are supposed to be free. But if it keeps them from getting a nuke and creating all this other havoc, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll leave that to Trump. He's the deal maker.
Yeah.
He's the peacemaker.
Well, it goes back to the point, too. Like, all right, if we're going to make sure that they're not rebuilding their nuclear arsenal, who's checking that, right? Like, who's in charge of checking all that, Victor?
Well, I would say us. And if we see any warm spots going in that area, drop a daisy cutter.
Yeah. Get the B-2 boys out of Whiteman.
There you go.
All right.
Got it covered.
Yep.
Take
Thanks,
care.
brother.
Have
Appreciate
a great week, sir.
You too, my man. 913-408-7957. We'll get to our caller of the day at the bottom of the hour here on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, I've been sitting on this article. I have wanted to bring it up and talk to you about it for the last couple days. I just haven't had time with the news cycle the way it is. We'll get to it next.
From Smithville to Shawnee Mission, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
The socialist brand is on the rise. That's the headline here from Politico. Capitalism is out, socialism is in, according to new polling from Gallup. Democrats and independents are cooling towards capitalism, and they are more aligning with figures like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Zoran Mamdani. Democratic voters also viewed elected officials who describe themselves as Democratic socialists about as positively as they identify those who are preferred Democrats without using the Democratic Socialist moniker. So I believe this, by the way. I readily believe this, and I don't think the Republicans are prepared for it. I really don't. If Democrats moderate their stance on the culture issues and they just lean hard into democratic socialism economically, they will go on a heater. They will. People are falling behind. Inflation has eaten them up on the earnings side over the last few years. Young people can't afford homes. Forget just the mortgage with the interest rate. You factor in property taxes, homeowners insurance, and people feel like they can't just do the basics to live what was always the American dream. And if they can do it, they got two people working, and they're struggling to get by.
We don't teach kids the American dream and that you have to get up and work. That's the problem. So this started in the education system. The Republicans are stuck with it right now in the election.
I disagree.
No,
I disagree.
I got 30 years on you where I've seen what happened up to the point that you were born, where I'm going, look, people are not.
But what's your point? That young people are lazy and that's why they can't get a house?
That's part of it, yeah.
What's the evidence of that?
Looking out the window.
Okay.
Walking through the city.
So who are you working with who's young and lazy? Me, Mark? Who is it?
I didn't say anything about anybody in this building.
Well, I'm just. So what's the evidence? That's where you go to work every day.
Well, that's where I go to work. I said I look out the window. I've got my life in Grandview. I see people complaining. I go out to retail. I interact with people who are 20 at retail. And they can't even handle the basics. They can't count change without a phone. If their cash register's down, they don't even understand what capitalism or socialism is or the difference between the two.
I agree with you there.
Okay.
I agree with you. But if the attitude of Republicans is going to be everyone's young and dumb and just doesn't get it, then they're screwed.
Please,
they
I'm
are
not saying
screwed.
that. I'm saying that. I'm saying this. The horse has been long out of the barn. The Republicans are stuck with dealing with it.
I agree.
Now, right?
I agree.
So we're on the same page in general.
Yes. No, and I like this back and forth. I'm good with it. I just think that if Republicans take the approach of every young person just doesn't work hard enough, they're going to get their asses kicked.
Absolutely right.
If that's going to be your approach of I used to work. I worked 7 jobs,
right.
and I walked uphill both ways.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about.
You will get your clock cleaned, and you will deserve it. I'm just telling you. I mean, obviously, with it being kind of more of my peer group, I'm looking at people and saying, they feel like they can't buy a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house just to get their life started because of how expensive everything is.
People don't want to live where they don't want to live is the thing. There are homes available.
There is an element to that. You're right. There's an element to that. But if you're telling me, hey, I've got to go live, on the east side of Kansas City to afford a house, well, you know what? There's a lot of people a generation ago who didn't have to do that to buy their first house.
Right.
And they don't want to have to do that. And I understand it. So broadly speaking, I really believe that democratic socialism will grow in popularity in the months and years to come because people are going to throw their hands up and just say, I don't know what else to do. Fine. Take more of my money. Promise me you'll take it from Jeff Bezos and just give me a chance. It's bad. I don't like it. To John's point, there's certainly an element. There's certainly an element of people not understanding the difference in capitalism versus socialism and how capitalism has made this the greatest country in the history of mankind. But that's not something that's going to win at the ballot box for Republicans. If the Democrats moderate on the crazy culture wars and they go all in on leaning towards a socialist system, they will have a good run. That was good, though. And I want to hear from you as well at 913-408-7957.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio, right after Pete Mundo and Mundo in the Morning.
So there was this story I was talking about right before the break. Politico with the headline, Democratic Socialism is in, Capitalism is out. And my contention is that if the Democratic Party doesn't go as crazy on cultural issues and leans in hard on this idea of air quotes democratic socialism, they will beat the Republicans and beat them up real good. Because people, especially younger people right now, are feeling like they just can't get ahead. John had a point, and I think it's a fair point to say there are definitely young people, I don't know what the segment of the population would be, that just don't want to work, lazy, and want to be the victim. Being the victim is definitely in vogue. There's no doubt about it. But I also think that if that's the political approach of the Republicans, which is like, hey, everyone who doesn't want to, or everyone who can't afford a home is just lazy, they will get their butts smoked. And they will deserve it. Carl's in Independence on KCMO. What's up, Carl?
Hi, Pete. Yeah, well, I've got a few years on that young pup, John, so I've seen a few more things. And, I've worked with kids from private schools, homeschooled, and public school, and the private school kids are light years ahead of them. I volunteer at a thrift store, and you would be amazed at the amount of furniture that comes in that has a loose screw, needs a little piece of glue, and these people can't fix it. They don't know one end of a screwdriver from another. Their world is wiggling their fingers over a keyboard and think that they're actually working. So, I agree with John. We've got to get back to real solid values and real work ethic. And until we get that, we're in trouble.
Okay, so politically, how do you do that then? That's the question. Because honestly, just kind of screaming at kids to learn how to use a screwdriver doesn't win you elections.
I agree with you that it doesn't, but it all has to start in the home. That's
okay. So how do you if I think there's certainly an element of what you're saying and what John said that is correct. But in the end, here's what I'm looking at, Carl. I mean, that's kind of I see what you're saying. But here's what I'm looking at, okay? People are sitting there right now. You got, I think a lot of hardworking families who can't get ahead. All right, they've done things the right way. They've got a lot of maybe still student loan debt they got to figure out. They want to buy a house. They might have a kid or two, but they literally can't save enough to get ahead to put on that down payment because the housing prices are out of control. In 1980, the average median income was $22,000. It cost you $65,000 to buy a house. Right now, the median income is $80,000 for a household. The average home is costing you $425,000. That's 5 to 6 times the median income. It was half of that in 1980. What do you do to those people who did it the right way? I'm not talking about the knucklehead kid who's, never getting out of his mom's basement. The family
now
that's done it the right way.
Let's look at the reason for that housing cost.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one, they're looking at much larger homes for the first purchase.
Mm-hmm.
We've got suburbs full of little ranch houses, little 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and that has served families for generations. We also have, look at the taxing structure and what you have to go through to even build a house.
Yep.
And all these hidden built-in
red tape,
taxes.
property taxes. Yes, all that's true.
Not only property taxes, but the taxes on the materials, the taxes, the compound hidden taxes that are behind it.
Mm-hmm.
If you a couple of years ago, I started adding up all the little taxes that I pay. I'm in the 50% tax bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Start looking at all the little things, the sales tax, the property tax, the hidden income, the tax on manufacturing. It's driven the price up of everything. We've got more government than we know what to do with. And
okay, I agree with you. But as we just saw yesterday in Kansas City and around Jackson County, and basically every tax that was on the ballot from Hickman Mills to the earnings tax to city council races and independents and Lee Summit and elsewhere, those that favor larger government won across the board.
Yes. And I tell you, I need to find a building with a big concrete column and a long running space so I just run and bop my head into it. Because after I do that, I know I'll feel so much better.
Yeah, save room for me. Save room for me. Thank you very much, Carl. Jack in Kansas City. What's up, Jack?
Well, I'm not as old as John or the fellow who was just on the phone. I'm 30, voted Republican the last 3 elections, lived in Kansas City my whole life. My family, we own a small business here in Kansas City as well. So I have the luxury of working with people a little younger than me. And, I think there's a mix of two things. John's not wrong. Some of these kids, they definitely don't understand what hard work is. They don't know how you show up for a job that you signed up for and how you put your best foot forward. However, I think the larger issue is what you're pointing to. Government has not only grown out of control, but our current government has failed to deliver on the promises. Through 4 years of Biden, I sat here, I listened to your show every day, and I heard Republicans just champion the fact that if they could just control the levers of government, we wouldn't be in the situations we found ourselves in under Biden. The sad reality is I think Republicans overwhelmingly failed to deliver. And so for the young generation and then even more independent voters, I don't think that they're going to be as, willing to come out and vote for just these open-ended promises that don't get fulfilled. And so the bad news is I think you're accurate with your statement on the Democrats may be handed the next election. I don't really know how you fix this other than recognizing that the devaluation of our dollar is the reason we're here. When you look at things and you go back to the 1920s and they'll tell you, I don't know how accurate it is, but they'll tell you we've lost, 95% of our purchasing power. I see that. My father, he still owns the first home he ever bought. He bought it for around $40,000. The property assessment came in just the other day, and the place is almost $200,000. To the gentleman's point on the phone earlier, this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house and just a slab piece of concrete right here in Kansas City, Kansas. And to think that, a young guy like me and even younger would be faced with a $200,000 mortgage that they would have to take on for a legit starter home. The thing is you can't really blame these people for almost checking out. If your parents don't have the means to either teach you how to kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps and keep moving forward despite, the unwavering resistance, I just don't really know how you get kids to understand that, and especially to even take that bite. I feel like sometimes homes get the bulk of the attention. At the end of the day, you can't even buy a used car for an affordable price. So by the time you add up all of these expenditures every month, you can see how even somebody like myself who works close to 50, 60 hours a week for, their own small business can still barely scrape by. And it's scary. It's scary because, the Mamdanis of the world understand how to pull at the heartstrings of those who may not be as experienced or as intelligent as some of us. And, that's just ultimately going to lead to what you saw yesterday, which is the bigger expansion of taxation through local and state government. And, unfortunately, I have to sit here as somebody who has been a Republican, at least I can say I'm a Republican for, my entire voting life, and say we're to blame for this. I mean, we ran on affordability. We ran on a promise to fix these issues. And if anything, while inflation may not be going up at the rate under Biden, it's still going up. Prices are not coming down. And so people are just left staring at a McDonald's menu wondering how they're even going to afford the value meal. And it's a scary reality that I wish that, more politicians, local and federal, would take time to kind of understand and at least try to address.
That's a great call, Jack. Thank you. I completely agree. Everyone's, I hate to say it, I'm going to give away participation trophies. We're all right in some regard. There's no doubt about it. You got something, John, before I pontificate?
Probably mine would be wrap up. I was just saying I bristle at the notion that we've let socialism become acceptable to our kids and that they don't understand it. So I was maybe addressing a root issue, but you're dealing with what's going on right now, here and now.
Yeah. And what Jack said, there's a lot of truth to everything that he was talking about there. Republicans and this administration has done a good job getting inflation down to a more acceptable level, but the nature of everything is you can't really get prices down. All you can do is slow the increase of prices going up unless you have a full-blown recession or depression, right? So people are still feeling all that economic pain. There's some evidence that now shows wages are finally outpacing inflation, so that's definitely a good thing. But how many years of that do we need to have before we get to a place where suddenly we can feel like people are getting back to having a chance to put a down payment on a home and do all these different things that they need to and want to do to have a successful life. It's a chicken or the egg conversation too here, right? Like, there's no doubt if you go to Dave Ramsey's talked about this. You go to college, not even go to college. You get a GED, you get married, and you have a kid. If you do life in that order, you've got a 99% chance of staying out of poverty. That's great. But life's about more than just staying out of poverty. People want to do what their parents did. And for the first time in American history, there is polling that suggests the younger generations, millennials and Gen Zers, don't feel like they can live the life that their parents lived. Jack nailed it too. The devaluing of our currency has driven a lot of this. We don't balance a budget at the federal level. We're $37 trillion in debt. That's $37 trillion that we've sent into the American economy and around the world for that matter. That is just funny money. And neither party's done a good job on this. And the Republicans have failed miserably. Every time they're out of power, they scream about, everyone spends too much money. And then they run up multi-trillion-dollar deficits themselves every single stinking time. It's happening right now. It is. And these are my guys. But they're doing the same thing. The same exact damn thing. And 50% of the budget is Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. It's 50% of the budget. And they haven't done squat about that. It's a failed system. And there's no evidence to suggest that they're going to do anything about it because they're scared to death of what it means for their political futures. Which, by the way, if you don't do anything about it, you might as well take the chance because doing nothing will destroy your political future anyway because democratic socialism is coming in hot. Mike and Olathe, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
I agree with you. I thought the same thing. That last call was amazing. John's points, my points. We all think the same thing. Your question, though, and the biggest problem is that there's an election in 7 months, a midterm, and we've got about a quarter to turn the narrative around and get the prices down again, or at least the oil prices, because we've been distracted and we've been allowed to be distracted by the left, and they basically just allowed this thing to fester with the health care issue and now this, and now all of a sudden elections on us. And there's going to be early election in 4.5, 5 months. So the feds and Trump and the administration has got to basically, okay, all the things we said are true. It's exactly right. It is what it is. But how do you change the narrative so that our narrative is stronger than the socialized, the socialized side of this thing, so that the young people and everything everybody said was right, but they've got to see some light. And if we don't show them some light in the next 3 months, your prediction is exactly right.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And, it's not even about the midterms. I think the midterms are toast no matter what, at least the House. I think the Republicans will hold on to the Senate. I do believe that. Some people are saying that the Democrats will win the Senate. I don't believe so. I think Republicans, the map favors them. I think they'll hold on to the Senate. But I'm thinking like 2028 and beyond. And that's where the Republicans have to figure out their strategy because I don't think they're prepared for it. I don't think they're prepared for the AOC Mamdani guys. I mean, they'll sit there and say, hey, this is crazy. This stuff doesn't work. And they'll be right. History shows it doesn't work. But who cares about history anymore? Who follows history anymore?
Touche.
And that's another scary proposition as well. And people will say, well, okay, but, has it been tried correctly? Has it been tried the right way in America? Do we give it a shot? Heck, I can't buy a house anyway. What do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? That's where they want you, by the way. That's what they want you to think. What do I have to lose? We'll wrap it up. 913-408-7957 next.
Vince Colonnese here, and I'm coming up at 11 after Kevin Keatsman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, let's put a bow on the show with you. We're racing to the finish line at 913-408-7957. How popular can democratic socialism become? Some of you on the text line are screaming, don't call it democratic socialism. It's an oxymoron. I'm calling it that because that's what the proponents are calling it. We all know that it's not a real thing, but it's what it will be dubbed as and has been dubbed as for a long time now. John's in Lewisburg. What's up, John?
Yeah, Pete. So I particularly want to address the fellow that you were talking to a few minutes ago that has a small family business that he operates. And I hear repeated the pain about young folks being able to afford a new home. I won't argue with the devaluation of the dollar for sure, but you have to look at what the costs are to build a home, a new home. And so most communities in the United States subscribe to some version of the international building. And if you look at building a house with the most recent version of the International Building Code, let's just say theoretically it costs to build a home. Well, if you build a home in an area of the country that doesn't subscribe to that building code or any building code, there are several areas in Missouri that you can do that, you could build the same house for $70,000. So I'd like to point out the cost of regulation in affording a new home is something I rarely hear anyone mention. So I wanted to point
I
that
think
out.
it's an excellent. Everything you're saying is right, John. You're right. The red tape, the cost of supplies, the sales taxes, the regulations, all those things are undoubtedly true. Carl pointed out earlier the size of the new home build today is larger than it was a couple of generations ago. The margins on new builds are not what they were. So builders are not as incentivized. All those things are true. But if you're explaining in politics, you're losing. Steve, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, you asked the question, how do we sell that? What policy changes do you make?
Yep.
And I think something that people on the Republican side could do is every time Donald Trump drops 3%, you hear about buyer's remorse. Republicans have buyer's remorse. I think with Abigail Spanberger and Mondami, I think there's 1,000% more buyer's remorse on the Democrats.
Yeah,
They put this wolf in sheep clothing. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you may be right. I mean, I hope you're right, Steve.
Yeah.
If New York City, here's what's going to be interesting. So New York State has a governor's race this year, and they'll have a solid Republican candidate, guy who is a county executive out in Long Island, which is a red part of the state. If he beats Kathy Hochul, that will be a telltale sign that the Mamdani thing ain't working and the experiment's failing. And if that happens, then yeah, things can change very quickly. Keatsman Uncanceled is next. Have a great day.